Good morning. Thank you for introducing me. And my presentation is not a traditional one. I will show you how not to do it. We have seen many pictures, beautiful pictures of implemented projects, great things that can be done, but I think it is also important to look at the other side of it, the things that you shouldn't do and you should avoid, and learn a lesson from it. And if the mistakes of others don't hurt so much, so let's start with those. Where can a mistake or a failure be done? If you don't fulfill the conditions for green roof, if you make mistakes in the design and planning, and then also a combination of different factors that can influence. So a basic precondition for a green roof is the statics, and this is, I would say, the most important. It has to be designed in a way that it can manage the load of a green roof, and it also has to be well carried out, executed. You see here a wooden construction. The arrow shows us, the red arrow shows us the corner, which basically under the load is bent and falling down. And when we investigated the matter, we discovered that the wooden construction is just not implemented and carried out how it should be. So the carriers were not done correctly. There were only some small drills and small screws, and everything had to be removed and done again. This is how it looks when a steel construction is not carried out correctly. This is a indoor tennis court and in Belgium, and you see the joints, and the joints on the right picture, they should have been fixed in the design, and in the execution they exchange it for some flexible ones, and this is why the steel construction would not hold the load. And already during the execution and work of the green roof, you can see what happened. So the question is that they didn't manage to replace it on time, but fortunately no one was injured. But this is how it looked like, and this is how it shouldn't be. This is a steel concrete construction, different factors which were not right. There was a wrong tilt of the roof, and the layers were not implemented in the right way. They also used a heavier substandard should have, so it was overloaded by many percent. So it is a green roof that basically fell down into the courtyard. 2 injured persons, fortunately nothing serious. Then this is an incorrect waterproofing layer. So it is not a certified waterproofing, it is not complying with the norms, and there is UV radiation, and I mean the waterproofing layers have there are different types of waterproofing measures. So it's not only about resisting UV radiation, but it's also about the implementation. Here you can see it is already prepared for green roof, but we already then have discovered a few defects, so the engineers had to come again and correct the work. And green roofs extend the lifespan of the shell. I mean, if it's a 0 at the beginning, then if you multiply it by 2, it's still a 0. So the thing, it has to be rightly planned, rightly designed, the whole construction, and also the waterproofing. So only then you can have a good green roof. So I will just quickly show you. This is how it shouldn't look like, or mustn't look like. Then you shouldn't have any water on the roof, because this is also due to bad tilting and or overload. You can have some AC device there or a pump, and then it is just simply not working and it is deforming the roof. You can see this kind of matzie. You have bacteria that are then active and it can come to leakages. Here are some designing failures. This is sometimes a thing in projects that doesn't work in extensive green roofs. The architect tries to even the green roof with the substrate to make it even, but we can have a higher layer, maybe 15 centimeters for higher plants, and then of course you also have a lot of wild plants then, and then if you have a lower height of substrate, then it's only the most resilient plants that will be grow there. But this is not an even and not a harmonized thing, so you can use this manner in intensive green roofs, but never with extensive green roofs. Another phenomena is the shading. Shading vegetation doesn't grow in shade, so you have to really look at the surrounding and overlapping of other roofs or balconies, everything that has an impact on the green roof. You always have to check where water leaks in. You see here is rainfall, then the water runs off on the waterproofing and then somehow jumps into the spout. I mean, this is not how it will work. It will never work this way. Then you, of course, at the drains or outlets, you need to have some control shafts. So these outlets, you need to control shafts. It's enough to have a height of the vegetation. It doesn't have to be higher, but you really have to pay attention to the shaft and the surrounding. This is quite often what happens. Draining of upper roofs into lower roofs. I mean, if this happens, then the vegetation looks differently. Of course, there is more water, but of course then also more wild plants, and it can also happen that the substrate is being washed away with extensive or too much excess water. And question to separate. Should you separate duck edges from the substrate? Then how you see the textile layer with the duck edge? I mean, there are two things. This is the effect of the shading and shading on the turf mat, and then also you have the waterproofing layer, and it all leads to the fact that the plants will somehow not prosper, and this kind of vegetation, it will not work like that if it's put directly on the waterproofing layer. Then we have a sloped roof, different mistakes, wrong selection of substrate, then a knob foil which just doesn't work in sloped roof because the vegetation just doesn't grow in these conditions. So this was not an expert solution. It was done by amateurs or laymen, and this is why it would not work. Then another example, a sloped roof needs some catching borders in order there will be not any shifting of the substrate, and these layers will just not hold in this manner. And I think the owner will be happy if the roof will hold all this load, because the roof should really hold the soil, but I think the owner will be happy if he will survive all of this load. another sloped roof. Drainage system not carried out properly, it's not dense enough, and it's quite a big tilt, so you need to choose the system which are suitable for such incline. Then again, a bad example. I mean, this is a street view picture, and the roof had to be redone several times in order to make it work. This is a quite difficult shape of a roof, a lot of balconies, a lot of inclines, and they used plastic plants, and it just looks like a green roof, and it's not. Then execution phase. One of the contractors has published this type of information on the website, and there are some expanded polystyrene which absorbs humidity. Then we have some distance mat that should separate the polystyrene from the foil, but this is not how it works. It will be pressed until the PVC foil, it's not a compatible manner, and then it will be a degradation of the whole foil which is underneath the polystyrene. So this is not the ideal solution. This is how a problem looks like, and it will be a problem in a few years' time. Then an example from Slovakia. I received this from Braňo Siklinka. There is no filtration layer, insufficient amount of substrate, so a bad performation of the foil. So all the mistakes that you do here, it will show on the vegetation later. So it is not covered. This green roof is not covered sufficiently with substrate, and it will be necessary to redo and upgrade the whole roof. And it has happened already, was just confirmed. This is how a constructor made a green roof. I'm not saying that they are not capable to do, but I think a gardener, expert on gardening, should decide on the type of plants. So first they prepared it without any plants, so the roof was only prepared, so there was only substrate. And then there was succession, and different types of plants from all the surrounding just started to grow there. And the outlet, this is how it looks like. And you see there is this gravel on it, and it was not even easy to find it there. It was just a hole in the foil. Then there is no waterproofing layer. So there was leakage and at the railing, and the tarmac part has a different characteristic. It shrinks and it expands due to temperature, and then on the part where there is green roof, it doesn't work so much. So in this place, you see on the picture, you see there was leakage, and the construction again had to be insulated again. Luckily, we don't meet this case so often any longer in the Czech Republic, only sometimes. I mean, if you use soil instead of roof substrate, I mean, soil doesn't have the features for green roof, so too much organic parts, too much wild plants, and a lot of microparticles that can destroy the drainage system. So that's why you need to use a substrate, a special substrate for green roofs. This is a part which is very often not popular with people, that they don't like these edges, these special edges, but on high buildings you need this kind of borders, but also on low-rise buildings you need it. It's also due to fire protection and drainage system and so on. Erosion, a very light layer in a windy condition, this is what happens. And this light version is not always the most suitable one. Then maintenance. Very often we meet the information, see the information that, I mean, maintenance is so difficult with green roof, so we will use this kind of small gravels and stones, but not every green roof needs maintenance, a green one or not a green one. And if you don't maintain it, this is how it looks like. This is not a biodiverse roof. This is an inversion construction, and this is how you see how it nicely and beautifully grows. But there were leakages, so that's why they had to redo it. Then care after plantings, and of course everybody needs to agree on who will irrigate after planting. So if there will not be irrigating, then the vegetation will not grow. This is a picture after a few years, where you see that these sedums are somehow not interconnected because they were not irrigated sufficiently right after planting them. Then of course you need to clean all the spouts, and because this is where all the water runs into, and this is where plants grow. You can see here your pictures how they grow inside the system. So this is an annual maintenance that needs to be done on a green roof, but also on different types of roof. And also to maintenance, how to remove all the wild plants and how to pull all the wild plants. So you really need to work on it. And here is a PV which is not working, and it is not possible to maintain such a roof. Question: is it even possible to do it in the right way? Yes, of course it is. There are standards. You can download it on your association's website, zelenestrechy.org. Slovakia has standards. You have to cooperate with really renowned companies. You need to check the roof during design and planning, but also during implementation and execution, and you really need to be there from the start until the end. And if it all works out well, this is how it looks like. These are older green roofs which are beautiful, and also in combination with PV panels, bifacial vertical installation of panels, community gardens, roof gardens, and this is how it works. Then also for smaller animals, you see some crickets there. So thank you for your attention, and I wish you many successful installations.